Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This event is brought to you by DataTalks.Club, which is a community of people who love data. And we have weekly events. Today is one of such events. And if you want to find out more about our events, you can go to our website, DataTalks.Club/events. So if you go there, if you click on this link, you will see what we have planned. And today, by the way, today is a live podcast kind of talk, interview style. So we don't have any slides. It's a relaxed conversation. And then we have a different kind of events which happen on Tuesdays. So next Tuesday, we will have a talk about reinforcement learning for search. And then next Friday, we will have another talk about Alec will talk what he learned from interviewing 300 data scientists. That's very exciting. So moving on, if you want to stay up to date with our events, the best way is to join our Slack. Then you can also subscribe to our newsletter and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Last but not least, if you have any questions today during our chat, we have a pinned link in the live chat. So you can just click on this link and ask any question you want. And that's all for the introduction. Are you ready? Okay, so let us start. So this week we'll talk about the disconnection between data folks and the management and how to breach this gap between the two. And we have a special guest today, Lior. Lior has experience of over 12 years in building data teams, leveraging data for growth, and he learned a lot from that. He experienced a lot of pains, and he even has written a book about this. And he also hosts a podcast. The podcast has a name, What the Data? And full disclosure, I was a guest on this podcast once, so go and check it out. So welcome to our event.
I'm so happy to be here. Actually, I think that one of my happiest moment is when I'm talking to data scientists and data engineers, and I was like, yes, we can do so many cool things together. So I'm happy to be here.
Yes, welcome. So before we go into our main topic of communicating with business, let's talk a bit about your background, because I know with 12 years of experience, you probably saw a lot of things. So can you tell us a bit about your career journey so far?
So I'm a dinosaur, as we call it. I started my data career even before there was any Google Analytics or any idea of Google Analytics on board. We used very simple analytics tools that were installed locally by us. And then in the last couple of years, I was working for Zalando. And there, basically, I'd done the entire transformation of the data for the marketing department. Was working for Lavu, a dating app, to the ones who don't know it, a quite cool company. And they're also kind of a product manager to help constructing data. And now, lately, I am running the podcast What the Data, where I'm interviewing quite a lot of data and business people and trying to actually bridge the communication between these two functions to actually drive or leverage the data for growth. And then also I'm managing director of About Data, which basically is a company that we started as an agency. Now we're moving more towards a product approach that helping companies to set up their data infrastructure in a quick way so they can focus on hiring good data engineers and not being under pressure to run around.
Yes, thanks. So your profile, I checked your LinkedIn profile, and it says that your position, your title now is a data strategist. And which makes me wonder, what does a data strategist do?
So as I see, data strategist is the person who sits between the data engineering, the data science, and the business, and trying to find the right approach to use the data. So one of the biggest pains that I suffered as a product manager for data for a very long time was that I need a dashboard. I need it now. I need it tomorrow. The calculation is wrong. I don't trust it. It's supposed to be 8. Why is it 4? And what a data strategist, as I see it, needs to do, it needs to balance between the two functions of the tech and the business and ensure that both of them actually speak in the right language And on the second part, they also have the right strategy. So they're actually understanding when we're talking about installs, what do we mean when we're saying install? What do we mean when we're talking about session? And when we're running a model for forecasting, for example, revenues, how is it being calculated? So the business not going to go into the details of is it a random forest or a linear calculation, or they will ask, but they're not really understanding what stands behind it. What they care about is how accurate it is. And this is where you need to come in and actually make sure that the understanding level is correct between everybody. And there is also a trust to the data, because I think a lot of business people don't trust the data. And this is something I always suffered from. It's like, no, it cannot be that data is correct. Check it again. I'm missing something here. And this is where data strategists actually should come in and support organization in understanding better how to use it.
So as I understood, you have you do two things. So one, you're the bridge between the technical people and the business people, right? So you help communicate. So you help translate I don't know, the requirements maybe, and develop trust for business. So business people don't trust in data, and you help them to have this trust. So you help them understand what's going on behind the hood, and then at the same time you also probably do the other way around. You help the technical people to understand what business wants from them, right?
Yeah. So I like to say that I'm the idiot in the room that asking all the idiotic questions that everybody else are afraid to ask. That's how I see it myself at the end, if I need to sum it up.
And you also, as I understood, you are coming from the product management background, right? So you are more from the business side coming into tech rather than from tech to the business side, right?
So actually, I started my way in the tech. I was in the path of being a developer. Then I decided that life too short for me to sit down and debug code. I think this was one of my biggest frustration always. And then I moved more towards the product, but I'm still coding. So I'm still writing Python. Although I know SQL is not a code, but I'm still writing SQL queries. I'm still running R queries, sometimes using R for different parts. So I'm still connected to the code, but I'm trying not to develop because I know I'm bad in it. But I also understand enough code to be able to actually translate it into something that people can understand, or I can at least look at it and see what's going on in there.
So you basically have background of a technical person. You also have a background of a product manager, which puts you in this unique position of being able to understand both, speak the same language to, like, not the same language, but be able to translate from one world to another, from one function to another. And from your point of view, how can we improve communication between the technical side and the business side? What are the things we can do to make it better, smoother?
So one of the most idiotic things that I noticed that improving communication is when something goes wrong with the data or with the formula, a small email that being sent out and saying, guys, don't use it, we're checking what went wrong. And even if it was triggered automatically, so to try to trigger it automatically before people even starting using the data. In today's world, we're trying to finish processes before people arrive to the office. Also, we don't have any office anymore. We're all sitting at home, but we're trying to make it available for people from, let's say, from around 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., whatever you're setting it up. And people expecting to have the data at this point. And one of the key components here, and especially when we're talking about creating trust, is to trigger this small email that's saying everything was working fine, you can use the data. Or there was an issue, don't use the data because it may cause you to make the wrong decisions. And once somebody starting to suspect your data, you lost his trust. And to buy it again will take you long time, longer than what you even expect. It's just creating more frustration. It's just causing more backlogs on you as a developer. And in the long run, just going to find yourself running into an issue of they don't trust me. I still do my job. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated for my job. And basically, also the data scientist and all the data engineer becoming very frustrated. This is something I noticed, and I wasn't aware of it, because for me at the beginning when I started, it was like, okay, there is a request, you need to make it happen. I don't care how it happens, it needs to happen. But very quickly I realized that a lot of these requests are coming actually from frustration from the business person, who is transferring it now to the technical guy, who could have solved it just by sending an email saying, listen, dude, I checked the data, everything is looking good. If you have complaints, we can check it, but there is no reason for you because I did the QA for you. I checked that the data is correct and is to the best of my knowledge. If you spotted something, I will be more than happy to have a conversation about it. And it's going to reduce 60% of the wasting of the time back and forth between the tech and the business in many cases.
So the main thing here is building trust. So business people need to have trust in the work of data engineer, data analysts, data scientists. And one of the ways of doing this is be upfront, be transparent. If something happens, just inform immediately, right? Hey,
exactly.
Our job failed. So today expect some inconsistency in the data. We're working on fixing this. Sorry about that, right?
Think about something else. So you have a forecast model that you're running on a daily basis, right? That's supposed to forecast revenues. Let's say that you need to forecast 30 days ahead or even 360 days ahead. And if you're showing a certain number there and the people don't trust the number you give them, how can you make them trust it? So either you're creating some graph that's showing them what is your confidence level in the information, or either you telling them this is based on the most accurate data I have right now, and this is what I'm predicting. Because, for example, in many cases, when I worked on forecasting models, suddenly a model was crashing. It used to be very stable on a certain level, and then one day it crashed. And yes, sometimes marketing have changed, for example, their campaigns or stopped them, and the entire model went to the garbage because he was counting on a certain traffic that's going to happen. In some other cases, it's just that the model is not relevant anymore because somehow the users that arrived completely changed the picture of how he's observing the operation, or some features were changing and they are not relevant anymore, they're not available anymore. And this is the way for the data scientist to create a small dashboard even and put it somewhere, so whenever people are suspecting that the number is wrong, they can go there, they can QA it quickly and see immediately if there is a problem or not. And this is really small stuff that will take us half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours to do. And it can increase the trust of people in terms, like hugely, just because they have access now to the data, to the backend, and they know how the calculation going. And they will be able to themselves already see if something went wrong or not. Your job is to build a model, but also to QA it in a certain way.
Okay, so you mentioned that to build good communication, we need to build trust, and then building trust is informing, being transparent, and the second thing is just showing, let's say, even these small things like confidence intervals in our predictions, right? These things. So being upfront that our model might be wrong, and these are potential, boundaries and all that. So is there something else that we should do to, because I think for good communication, there should be somebody who can speak the language. So in addition to tools, in addition to all this alerting, we need to have somebody who can do this. You can call it a data strategist, or I think usually it can be like maybe a product manager who maybe was previously somebody technical, or maybe a data scientist who is going more the product side. But somebody needs to play this translator role, right?
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
No, you can have this translator in the middle, but you as a somebody who's touching the data, and basically most of us, or most of the data engineer, data scientists, looking at themselves as enablers functions. I'm just enabling somebody to do his job so he can do something better. The reality is that without you understanding what the product manager, or what the marketing, or what the finance team, or any other team out there wants to achieve, you won't be able to do your job as good as you want it to be. And I think that one of the things that I noticed many times is that the communication is always going either above somebody's head or it's going around it, and we're trying to avoid, because I'm talking tech and I will explain the tech side, and he's talking business, he's going to explain the business side. But this is not true. And one of the things that I actually created in many cases when I was working with data people is I put the data people, the data engineers, the analysts, or even the data scientists to sit with the business for a day or two so they can see what they are doing. And if you're looking at transparency in how you're writing the code and how you're creating it, notifying people, it's a great thing that saves a lot of time for everybody and increase the trust. QAing the data is a great thing that also creating an advantage, but also sitting with the people that are going to use your data at the end and understand their problems and what they do, going to help you to actually communicate with them better, because then you can tell them, listen, I was sitting with you. I saw that you're doing X, Y, and Z, and this is why I changed actually my process to adapt it better to what you do. Mm-hmm. Or maybe this is something wrong. Let's try to do a different approach. And it doesn't need always to go through a third party who's going to manage everybody. There is a one function, as I see it, that is a grow function that is built with the tech side and the business side, and both of them should enrich each other and give them basically the ability to grow and learn new stuff. The business can come with new ideas of automation or how to improve the models. The data side should come to the business and tell them, listen, I see that you're doing this and these operations usually. Why don't we change it? Why don't we do it better? So, for example, the most stupid thing that I saw was somebody was having 5 to 6 clicks to change his bidding on a certain platform. And the data engineer who was sitting with them was like, hold on, but why do you do this? There is an API, I can write it for you. I can do you a front end. It's going to take me maybe a week to build something for you, an MVP. And you don't need to do all of these clicks around, and you just can optimize it from one place. And it came only from the fact that they were sitting one next to each other and communicated on a level that I showed you what I'm doing, and I will show you what I can do for you afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I can totally relate as a data scientist. I remember that once I worked in a team that was creating tools for moderators. So moderators are people who look at, in my case, I work at OLX. So this is a company where you can sell things. And there are people who actually look at the content that users produce, at the listings that people produce. And they see, okay, this is something that shouldn't go live on the platform, and they reject, they remove it from the platform. And we were building things for these moderators. And I remember for me, the most enlightening experience was actually talking to the moderators, sitting, watching them, how they work, working with them together, and actually using the system together with them to moderate content. So just sitting with the users, with with those people who are going to consume the data products, consume the machine learning services. I think this is, I can totally agree that it brings the understanding on the next level. And it also, this experience that you see the firsthand, what kind of problems they have, like it gives you a different perspective, right?
Yeah. And to remember, data is not an enabling function, it's a leading function. At the end of the day, without having the right data, having the right outcome of the data, nobody will be able to do anything. It's not only enabling, it's also growing. It's also part of the growth of the organization and making the organization much stronger. Even if you're working, so for example, for me, I was working as a freelancer for a while for Cisco in the recruitment team. And one of the most important parts for the recruitment team was actually the recruitment process, and to analyze it and to understand which positions actually we have issues or not, or which position can be improved with the candidates, or maybe we are missing something that we don't see today. And you can only drive this stuff when you're sitting with the recruiter together and you're understanding how he's working. And the same thing goes to the marketing, and the same thing goes to every place. And a lot of these recruiters are also frustrated many times from their job because there is a hiring manager that's stuck in the process. And maybe you can actually create some panel or some dashboard for them that they can go and say, okay, you're stuck in my process. Let's see how we can move faster, how we can improve the process and actually bring better candidates. Or if candidates feeling that they are suffering, how can you actually improve it? And I think that this is one of the points that only by sitting together and combining forces, you can actually drive this growth.
And then, yeah, I was just thinking about the example you gave, like when somebody was taking 6 clicks and the data engineer approached and said, hey, we can make it easier for you. But I imagine then there are some cases when the data engineer would have a pushback, like maybe in cases when there is not enough trust between the technical part and the business part yet. When they think, okay, this is some, I don't know, somebody coming from outside who's telling us how to do things. Like, no, we will keep doing things the old way. So how to deal with these sort of pushbacks? Like when you say, hey, I want to help you do your job better, but yeah, so not everyone gets immediately excited about this idea.
Go to the juniors. No, I'm joking. One of the key things that I was encouraging people is actually to go into either to do it on the hackathons then, and use the hackathon as an opportunity to actually present it to a larger crowd. The other part is that if you think that this is something that really not going to take you that long, work on it as a side hustle when you have some free time, and then present it and tell them, like, you can keep doing your own stuff there, but let's give this one a try for a week or week and a half and see what happens. If you trust enough that what you constructed and what you created is actually something that's going to serve them to the better, and you're going to give it to them and tell them, like, let's try for a week. What can go wrong, right? Nothing can go wrong if you're going to try it for a week. There is no chance that they're going to push it back. And I think, yes, there is a lot of pushbacks for tech people. No, don't do that. I have a bigger strategy that I need you to work on. But right now, I see that there is a problem that I can solve you quite quickly. So why don't you let me work on it for a week? So we're going to have a feedback of a week. And a lot of companies that working, for example, with OKRs and stuff like this, okay, so you're going to reach out to 0.5 instead of 0.7 because you had an extra week working on something else. But it saved you. The amount of time that it saved you, this is what actually counting at the end of the day. If you're thinking about an organization that have 14 people, that all their job is just to download reports from different platforms and then do copy paste of them into Excel sheet. This doesn't make any sense, right? It's a waste of time. It's 14 employees that working an entire month or half of the month just on downloading data. No organization going to come and tell you, like, you know what, no, that's a stupid idea to automate it. Why would we do it? On the contrary, organization wants to automate this process so these employees can actually do their actual job, which is not sitting there and download reporting, but actually going over the data, make the right decision, change the biddings, change the right approach for the growth. So if it's, for example, removing items or adding items to the shop, this is what their job is. Their job is not to download the data and just copy paste it into Excel. And this is where we're coming into the picture, and we should push quite hard and find our right way to actually present stuff. But we also need to think always in a lean way, in an MVP way, which this is another point that I will add here. Don't get complicated with stuff. Don't go into development now of 3 months or 6 months for a product, because in the industry that we're working in, sometimes 3 or 6 months means the end cycle of a feature of a product. Maybe by the time you're going to finish it, it's not going to be relevant. So you need to think about, what can I achieve in a week or a week and a half or maximum 2 weeks, and I can release it outside and showcase what it's used to. And then on top of it, start building it. So start with a lean approach, and then if it's catching, move into an agile approach. And again, this is what I always hate, like using these OKRs or lean or agile, because there is no one system that fits everybody. But we need to think about it as a cycle. You're starting with a lean, you're moving to an agile, After you have Agile for a while, you can move into OKRs because it's already more stable and it's more built. And I look at it like a plant. When I'm starting seeding, for example, my tomatoes to put in the garden, I'm starting it from a seed and it's slowly growing and I need to move it into a new pot. And then when it's in this pot, I need to let it grow there and I need to move it to another pot. And I'm starting it in February, and only May, June, I'm going to put it into the ground and it's going to catch with the roots into the soil itself. But until I'm arriving to this point, I need to have different approaches to the plant, right? When I'm seeding it, I need to make sure it's dark and moist for him. When it's opening up and the leaves are coming out, I already need to change my approach and start growing it in a different way. And this is also when I'm talking about hummus in my book, I'm talking exactly about that. Hummus is so simple. It's just chickpeas, tahina, lemon, a little bit of salt and garlic, and that's it. There is no magic behind it. It's so simple and so fast. And this is how data should be. This is how people should actually think about their approach to data. It should be simple, but it's filling you up so much that you don't want to eat anything else afterwards. It's that simple.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it makes any sense for me to ask what's your favorite food, because I think it's clear.
I will go with hummus, most likely.
Yeah, I thought so. Yes, we will talk a bit about hummus and your book later, but I like the metaphor you had, like about the garden in a plant. But I'm wondering what could be the right, how can we find the right balance between complexity and simplicity? Like, because I understand that this development MVP, have this hackathon, create something quick and dirty that just to prove value, but then at some point it becomes a project that needs to be maintained. And if I, as a data scientist, hack something together, then any sane engineer would look at this and say, I don't want to touch this code, right? But on the other hand, maybe this is something that I hacked in a week that works. It's far from ideal, but it doesn't fail all the time. So how do we find the balance between, this moving fast and doing things maybe simple versus something complex? Like, how do we make sure that we're not doing too much, but doing right enough, just enough?
So if we're looking at it, it should be very, very simple at the beginning. And yes, it's going to be bad. It's not going to be beautiful. Code will never be beautiful. And this is why I stopped coding as well, because at some point I realized that my code is so horrible, people didn't want to deal with it. And I didn't want to have this feeling of, oh shit, I did a really, really bad job. I want to make it much nicer. And you start with something ugly, you see that it works. If it works, then you're creating this approach of somebody taking over, fixing the code, building it up, creating the system of how we're going to grow it. So what is the end goal of it? And how it's going to become a better process for us in the future. And I think that this is basically the points that are most relevant for us. Take it, the ugly as much as it is, check that it's actually working. And you know what? And I know that a lot of people say, yeah, you're talking about tech and needs to work. It's going the same thing for the business. If business wants to have a dashboard or they want to have some calculation being done, they need to do it on an Excel sheet and run with it for several times. And my philosophy is kill Excel. There is no use of Excel. But there are certain cases when you want to start something, and even if the tech don't trust it, you need to start it on an Excel sheet, show that it's actually working and you're actually using it, and only then send it up for development. And it goes both sides. On the code, disgusting code at the beginning, you're making better, or you're starting with an Excel sheet, horrible. I will kill somebody if I'm going to see him using Excel, but I have to accept it. And then it's going to move into automation. We need to convince each other and show them that actually there is a purpose and there is a use for what we do. And this is the only approach for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as I understood, having ugly code is fine if we know that it's going to be rewritten. And then even before that, even before having any code, try simpler things, try Excel, try to see that the idea you have, like maybe try to solve the problem without any code at all at first and see
Correct.
if it's valuable, if it's valid. I think I heard this expression, do things that don't scale first and then try to automate them, right? So maybe this is Yeah, but other thing I'm also wondering, and this is also it's something I experienced in the past. So you said, okay, there is some ugly code, yes, and then somebody will take this over and make it better. But how to convince somebody to take this over? Because I usually have problems with that. Like, how do I convince that? Okay, this is my code. I know it's ugly. I know it's bad, but it's also a problem. How do I convince people to actually take this over and make it better?
Look at your code and look at it as an Excel sheet at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
It will go to the garbage because we're going to automate it. You wrote the code just to prove a point. The point was proven. There is now a use case for it. There is a business that's standing behind it that can actually push for it. Then start rebuilding it from scratch, or take the old code and try to improve it. But don't get insulted if somebody tells you, okay, listen, I don't like your code, I want to rebuild it. It's completely fine. He's taking ownership. And at the end of the day, when he owns it, it's his responsibility to make sure that the code is looking better. And it's his responsibility to also understand and being able to explain to others what is he doing. And this is, again, something that I learned quite heavily when I'm running now my company. So we're using a lot of external resources for different parts of our code. We cannot always run all over it and ensure that we can cover everything. And sometimes this code is not the best, but at least it's doing the function, it's creating the idea, it's creating the concept and the demand. And then from there, we're going to take it and we're going to streamline it. We're going to fix it. We're going to create something that can be used in the future. But we need to start somewhere. And then from the moment that there is a clear use case and an ownership, everything can run smoothly. And I think nobody going to come and tell you like, nah, I don't think that I want to use this tool. If there is a use case, this is the reason why you're developing code. You're not developing code just to say, yeah, I'm sitting here and I'm writing Python. No, you're sitting here because you want to solve a problem that's going to help your company to grow. And this is exactly the reason why you're there. And this is exactly the reason why you should take this now and start working on it and fix it.
Yes, and basically don't get attached to the code. So if I wrote my code and somebody says, then yeah, just don't get attached to this, right? So if somebody wants to rewrite and it's reasonable time frame, right? So it's not going to take 6 months, then it's fine, right?
You know how many times people were telling me that something I was doing looked disgusting? So I was, for example, in many times I used to be the first one to build dashboards. My color picking is horrible. Okay, let's put it this way. When I was 18 years old, I was requested to do some presentation for somebody, and the only reaction that I received was, the colors you picked were the most horrible colors I ever seen in my life. And I don't know how somebody can survive with such a color pattern. And I didn't care. And I told him, like, it doesn't matter. Did you understand the message I tried to transfer to you through the presentation? And he was like, yes. And I was like, great. So now you can take it. You can create the right color schema for that. You can add whatever images you want and cut them whatever way you want. The most important part is that the message and the use case here were transferred. And I think that this is life. This is life at the end of the day. And since then, every time I'm building a dashboard, I know already it's not going to be beautiful. Somebody's going to come and make it much more beautiful than what I do. And I accept it. I accept it. I don't fight against it.
Yeah. That's I was again going back to this ugly code and when moving fast. So it creates a reaction from engineers. Okay, this is code bad. This is a bad code. We want to rewrite. But the other thing it might cause business to think that this speed is the usual speed. So this is the speed you can expect things to happen in the future, right? So next time the new feature added to this raw prototype, it will also be added in a week. It will also be added, I don't know, after a couple of days. And so I think it creates this false sense of, moving very fast. So do you have some tips how to handle expectations from business when it comes to MVP versus development?
So one of the things that I'm talking about a lot is hummus, and hummus you can do it in the quick way, or you can do it in the slow way. The quick way, you're just going to go and buy chickpeas in a can. You're going to wash them a little bit, ground them, add some tahina, and here you go, you have hummus. And it's hummus. I'm not going to fight with you. It's hummus. At the end of the day, you have chickpeas, you have tahina, you have the basic ingredients, and it's great. But is it actually the taste you were after? No. If you really want to get this taste, you will need to soak the chickpeas for 24 hours. You will need to cook them for 2 to 3 hours until they're getting soft. You will need to grind them. You will need to cool them down. You will need to mix them with tahina. There is a large process. And what I'm always explaining is that, yes, this one is my hummus from a can. This is just to give you a taste of what hummus can be. Now let's move and work on the hummus itself. And if I'm going outside of this metaphor of hummus, the reality is that, yes, the beginning is always fast because you're doing the minimal things that you need to do. But now every feature that you will need to develop on top of it is going to take time. It's going to take much more thinking because, hold on, now we made sure that it's relevant and it's needed and required. Now let's figure out actually how we're making it not only needed and required, but also used and loved. And this is two different stories. It's chickpeas from a can, a chickpeas you cook yourself. They will have two different tastes. It's going to be completely different. And this is exactly how I'm looking at development of code.
I know what I will use next time when I explain why it's taking so long. Yeah, great. I wanted to ask you a bit. I really love the metaphor. I even forgot what I wanted to talk about. So I think I wanted to also cover talking to people who do not know how to code, right? So let's say, again, we're talking to business, but they don't always understand the effort you put. So maybe they don't care between the difference between this fast hummus and proper hummus, right? So because they don't see all these intricacies, they are not into hummus. Well, not into coding. So how do you talk to people who don't understand all these complexities about coding? How to structure the conversation with them?
So if they don't understand coding, and this is a lot of people don't understand coding, and to be honest, I think I'm very lucky that I had a chance to actually sit down and understand how to write code and how to work with it. But if we're looking at how we're creating basically a process that is meaningful, it's to go and sit down with the people who don't understand code and explain to them why you're doing what you do and why is it taking time, and speak to them in their language that they're going to understand. But on the other side, also show them your code, explain to them, bring them into your process, explain to them there is a certain way of how I'm working. So there is the definition of done, but this is how my code look like. And when you think, for example, that you committed for something that's going to take you 2 weeks and you don't think you can make it in 2 weeks, come early enough to them and tell them, like, listen, guys, I have this, and this right now that's disturbing me. I have this issue that don't allow me to keep developing, and I won't be able to deliver it on time. They're going to understand it. And not only that, you know what? I had a very, very non-technical director I was working with. And every time he saw a code, he started to have a rush. He couldn't sit in the room anymore once he saw the code. But when a developer came to him and told him, like, listen, I'm blocked because X and Y, you could have seen him sitting there, not understanding one line of code and asking questions in a very structured way of, okay, why doesn't it work? What are the issues? Where is it blocked? What can I do to actually help you? And then go and back then he was calling to Facebook to talk to them about an issue that the developer had with an API. And it just because he had the right connection and he knew exactly the right people to reach out to. And sometimes this can create this good communication also between the business and the tech. Even if he doesn't understand code, he's going to understand problems. He's going to understand blockers. He understand why this is not going to be ready by time. And this, I think, what is important to actually make sure that we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, again, back to the point we discussed at the beginning is just sitting together, trying to build trust, trying to show, trying to learn from each other. Like I, as a data scientist, I am willing to learn from you. I want to see what kind of problems you have. And then if I am a business person, I am willing to learn what kind of problems the data scientist has, right? Or data engineer. And then if we
Exactly.
do that, if we sit together and try to understand what's on our mind, what's on the mind of, the opposite sort of, not opposite, but like for business to understand tech, for tech to understand business, what kind of problems we have, then it will develop this sort of trust. It will develop this sort of connection. It will develop deeper understanding of problems we have, right? And then we will not need to explain why last time it took 1 hour to prepare something, but now it takes one month, right? Because we can show them these are the processes, this is what we need to do, this is the kind of code we need to write, and they will believe us because there is trust between us, right?
Break down the silos. So, for example, one of the things that I really loved when I worked at Lavu, and also when I worked for Zalando, and also when I worked at Cisco, there were no silos between the different functions. So if I'm developing something in code, or when I am need to deliver some dashboard, I'm going to sit down with my consumers together, and we're going to have conversations together. We're going to go for lunch together. And it sounds a little bit stupid, but it's working, because suddenly you have a common language, because you have a common goal together to do. And when you don't have these silos of, okay, I'm sitting there, I'm in the BI team and I'm sitting in my corner, you all the time it's happening, that you will never have a good communication. Once you're going to go down from your, I'm sitting in my corner, and I'm going now sitting with the marketing for one day, and I'm joining their chats, and I'm listening to what they're talking about. Now, when we're working from home, for example, one of the key components is actually to join, or ask to join, to their chats, so you can see what they're talking about, what is concerning them, and find your connection points to them through that. And when you are working on something that is managed by them or needs to be delivered to them, try to also share it on their channels, not only in the BI channels. Great, we finished the sprint, we release it. No, go to the marketing or go to the finance and tell them, hey guys, I finished it. I would love to get a feedback before I'm announcing it to my team. Mm-hmm. Think how it's changing suddenly the way that they're looking at you, because you came to them before you even went to your team, because you want to get their feedback, so you can actually release something you develop for them. It's showing them also that you value their feedback and you value their communication. And it's changing the game completely in many cases.
Yeah. Yeah, now it's a bit more difficult to have these lunches together. Like, I remember at some point we had this donut in Slack. This is like an app that randomly connects people. And oftentimes what happened was that I am connected with somebody from marketing or advertisement or some other department that I usually don't interact with, right? But they use data science products in their work, and then having this conversation with them, understanding what kind of things they worry about, even if it's remotely connected to my work, it develops this, I don't know what's the right word, empathy, understanding what they do.
Empathy and deep thinking as well,
Yeah.
right? Because it's sitting somewhere here in your brain, and you keep thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. And now, since everything is remote, so one thing you suggested to do is asking to take part in their meetings, or maybe just I don't know, maybe having random Zoom calls at some point, or whatever tool we use for meetings. Just have a conversation, maybe a coffee chat or something.
Don't waste too much of your time, because your time is important, and you still need to work on other stuff. But right. Yes, at least sit in their chat room and see, and then if you see something that is relevant, you can always ask them to jump on a call or jump on a conversation, and then you have a trigger and you have a connection. So it's not that joining their meetings, because I don't believe that joining for every week or every second week meeting going to give you any advantage, because most of the communication runs through the chat rooms, And then when it arrives into the meeting, it's either already solved or it's already in the process to get solved. It's already too late, or it's not relevant. You're just going to sit there and you're going to be bored and you're going to start coding, or you're going to do other stuff and you're not going to be focused. And this is not what we want to create. We want to create a communication that is triggered based on important parts. So something that happened is relevant right now.
Yeah, clear, more clear now. So basically it could be, if we use Slack, it could be a Slack channel, right? That and then just looking what kind of problems they talk about. If something is broken, then just pay attention to these kind of things.
Exactly.
Okay, clear. Then moving on to your favorite topic, which is, you know what?
Hummus?
Yes. So one of the questions we have is why data specialists don't like hummus, but business people do. And I think you asked me to ask you this question because I don't know, but I'm really curious to I'm really curious to know what you have in mind. So yeah, why data specialists don't like hummus, but business people do?
Can you guess?
No, because I am as a data specialist, I do like hummus.
Do you? So the reason for this question is that business people most of the time looking at the very end product and the very simple one. And they don't care about all the noise that goes around it. And this is why they like hummus. And data engineers don't like hummus because they want to see all the details around it. And they want to understand how the hummus was created as well. Otherwise, they're not going to trust it. And this is where we're going on the code, right? You want to know how your hummus was created. You need to see the code that's standing behind it. And this is why I said it. But the reality is that we need to create this. There is love for hummus for both sides. It's just that each of us looking at it in a different way. Me as a business person going to look at it only on the top of like, okay, the hummus looks really good. There is chickpeas there. There is a lot of olive oil like I like. And there is some sumac that I'm really enjoying. And the engineer will go look at it in a different way and he's going to start, okay, so what is the hummus made of and how can I make it better? And this is the biggest difference when we're talking to each other as well, when we're communicating. The view of the data engineer or the data scientist is very deep into the understanding of what stands behind it. The businessman, at the end of the day, his goal is to understand that what he sees in front of him fitting to what he needs, and he can start using it. He can eat it, he can start consuming it. And we need to, it's really important for all of us to actually remember this in every process that we're doing, that yes, there is looking backwards on the code and understand how it works, but there is also people that looking at the end only on your end product that don't see what happened behind it. And they will never maybe even understand the process. Why do you sock it for 24 hours or not for 12? But they don't have also the experience. And this is what we need to explain to them. I did it for 24 hours because I was switching water in between them. So I had 12 hours in with water that had baking powder inside it. And then I washed it and I put it for another 12 hours with a baking, without the baking powder. And this is what causing actually the chickpeas to be softer when I'm cooking them. And we need to really, really focus on both views and use hummus as the main way that we're looking at stuff. Think always about the hummus when you're dealing with data. Simple as that.
Okay. Yeah. So let's say if our company is a kitchen, then the data engineer is the chief, right? This is the person who cooks the hummus, right?
Exactly.
Then who are the business people? Are they the visitors, right? So they
are the consumers.
Consume.
Yeah.
Yes. So the
hummus.
data engineer produces a product, hummus, and then the business people, they are actually visitors. They go and eat hummus and they say, "Oh, this is delicious hummus, right?"
Oh, it's a shitty one, and then you should be ready for that. Reviews on Google don't lie. And I always say that in Israel, in many places where you go to eat hummus, you're gonna go into a place that looks really, really shitty. You're gonna see dog peas on the floor around the place. It's not gonna look the most attractive one. But when you're gonna go inside, you're gonna eat the best hummus of your life. And it's because they have the same recipe for the last 50 or 60 years that they were working on, and they created an experience. They understood how each ingredient that they included is changing their end dish. And me as a consumer, what I'm after is an experience that I'm going to remember. And when I'm using data, I need to remember this experience. It's not just that I'm using data. Don't just create dashboards. Don't just create more KPIs. Don't just create another forecasting. Think about what the client will want to eat and be very, very precise in the way you're working for it.
Yes, which reminds me of my future, ex-manager from former manager from my previous company. He's an Israeli, and he suggested me the best place to try hummus in Berlin. So I went to that place, and it looked super shady. Like I wasn't sure that I want to be there in that place.
Let me guess, Azam?
Yeah, I don't remember. It's somewhere in Prenzlauer Berg, so near Schönhauser Allee. Yeah.
Okay.
But that was a strange place. So, but hummus was delicious.
So
And
if
then,
there are people in Berlin that wants to go to a really, really good place, they should try either Akko, if they want to have like a good experience, or Azam, which for me is like the top of the hummus. And there is another nice place in Mitte, which called the Eatery. It's an Iranian guy, strangely enough, is making really, really good hummus, and he created the right experience for people.
okay, we should add this to the show notes. I don't know how many people listen for it from Berlin. I see one Ankush, hi Ankush. So he commented in chat. I know that he's from Berlin. So yeah, if you're into hummus, Ankush, you know now where to go. And yeah, so why did you call your book Data is like a plate of hummus? I think I'm getting some ideas from our conversation. So this is a great metaphor, but maybe there's yeah, maybe you have like a short answer to that question. Like, why did you call it this way?
The idea behind the book was that I wanted to have a book that combining my passion to cooking and my passion for data. And I think that data is like cooking at the end of the day. You need to cook it the right way, and you need to serve the right dish. One day in the future, maybe I will be able to actually create some very nice restaurant instead of working in the startup world. If anybody wants to patron me, I'm open. We can talk about that. But the idea of the book was actually that let's try to simplify it for people that do not deal with data. So business people, they don't understand SQL. They don't understand data warehousing. They don't understand AWS versus Google. These views for them are very banal of like, okay, this either this tool or this tool, tell me how much it costs and we're going to make a decision. What is the difference between Tableau and AWS QuickSight? They don't have this feeling. And in my book, what I want to say is like, guys, it's really simple. If you're going to cook it correctly and you're going to follow the orders, you can create great experience. And this where I'm coming from, actually trying to bridge these two different worlds into a very easy to process, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so your the main target audience for the book are the business people or the tech people or both?
It's mostly for the business people, but it's also for tech people who actually wants to understand a little bit better about how they should direct the business people to work. So if you think about it, there is a business strategy that goes somewhere there, and the tech is somehow involved. But the problem is that the business is creating a lot of pressure on the tech side. And what I'm trying to do in my book, I'm talking about forming the data strategy. So how do you actually understanding what is important and what not, and where you should put your emphasis on as a data engineer at the end of the day, or as a data scientist? Is it on the models, or is it on APIs and cleaning the data and sorting it? And the only way to achieve it is by getting the people into the understanding of there is a process. Let's try to create some flow where we all agree on what we are doing and what is important and what not. And then slowly we're gonna increase it. But first, let's feel comfortable with what we do. Let's create the base, and then on top of it, we can build whatever we want. And this is, I think, my main philosophy in life. Start with something that is very simple and stable, and then build on top of it whatever models, breakouts, call it whatever you want, buildings. you won't be able to build a building in the middle of the river, right? You need to have a ground that you can build it on. So let's start with creating this ground, cleaning the river from the water, drying him out, and then creating the space for the building before you starting building it. And I think that this is one of the most important parts where I'm trying to talk about in my book.
Will I also learn how to cook hummus from the book?
There is a recipe, my recipe there. You're more than welcome to try and let me know how it came out. Some people were complaining that it was good, but not as good as they expected. But as I mentioned, I think it's really about the taste of people. So, for example, for me, as I said, Azam is the top of the hummus place in Berlin. For others, they're going to say it's really bad hummus. They don't like it. They prefer to go someplace else, and it's completely fine. It's our taste buds that at the end of the day controlling what we like and what not. And it's completely fine if we will decide to go in a different direction.
Okay, thanks. That was great. Do you have any last words? Any tips and tricks maybe you want to share? More?
I just want to say one thing that I think is really, really important to know or to send it out there. We are living in a world that is controlled by data chaos. And we all getting underwater with the amount of requests for data that we have. And I think that we as data people, our job is actually to clear this mess for people. It's to educate them on the one side, and on the other side is also to make them feel comfortable with data. A lot of people don't use data or don't trust data and go by their guts feeling just because of simple stuff that happened in the past and they don't trust it. Or they now, on everything that they see, they're asking for 500 other requirements just to trust the number. And our job at the end of the day is not to be the sack that's getting beaten every day. It's actually to be the ones who's going there and showing people how it should be done. And we should be the leaders of the company when it's coming to growth, because we are the only one who actually can find the gems inside this entire surrounding of mud and find it out for them and let them grow. Without us, nothing going to happen. And this is something we all need to remember. We're working in a world of chaos, and our job is to bring to light for the people and actually make sure that they're going in the right direction.
Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot. One last thing I want to ask you, how can people find you on social media?
You can reach out on LinkedIn, it's Lior Barak. You can find me on Twitter, Lior B. This is the most active places I am in. They can also check out the podcast. We're always happy to have people on there if anybody interested to come and talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, please send me the links. I will put them in the description. And thanks again for joining us today to share your experience and to share your passion for cooking and hummus and sharing these wonderful metaphors that I am sure I'm going to use next time somebody is asking why it takes so long. That was my takeaway from this conversation. So I really took a note and I will use that. So thanks a lot for sharing all this with us. And yeah, I think that's all for today. So thanks everyone for joining us and watching the stream today. And I wish everyone great Friday, great rest of the day, and great weekend. And we'll see each other next week on Tuesday.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Happy Friday.
Bye.
Bye.